I'm Lucy Jackson, Assistant Professor in Ancient Greek Literature.
I'm Erin Lee, Head of Archive at the National Theatre.
In this series of films, Erin and I will be looking at some of the Greek tragedies that have been staged at the National Theatre. Using the records held in the theatre's archive as a starting point, we'll look at the practicalities of staging an ancient Greek play in a modern theatre building.
The archive is home to thousands of items, from photographs to prompt scripts, technical drawings to set models, dating all the way back to our opening night in 1963. Every production has left behind some traces of the multiple artistic choices and practical considerations that go into making a performance.
By exploring these plays as staged productions, rather than as pieces of literature, we begin to see these ancient works in a new light. Going behind the scenes of the productions makes us ask fresh questions about why these plays and their myths are still relevant today.
The National Theatre staged Aeschylus's Oresteia for the second time in 1999 in a new version by the poet laureate Ted Hughes. The designer was Vicky Mortimer and the director was Katie Mitchell. In this film, we'll look at how the play changed over the course of its run at the National Theatre and how the feminist politics of this particular production shaped its dramatic impact.
Most professional productions will have a week or so of performances called previews, where the lighting, design and performance are all put together and performed in front of a paying audience, but there are still changes being made to the production. Katie Mitchell's Oresteia was unusual in having a lengthy period of previews, where the production was still developing. Part 1, The Home Guard, had its first preview on the 24th of September 1999. Daughters of Darkness had its first preview on the 18th of November. The press performance, which is often regarded as the moment when a production is in its final state, for both parts was on the 1st of December.
What is fascinating to see in this production is that actors and the creative team were still intensively working on the show even after the press performance. Stage management reports are a real treasure trove here. We read how Katie Mitchell had watched one of the performances in January 2000 and decided the play was too dark and dimly lit, and so required an overhaul in all the lighting cues for the full 6 hours of this play, a major undertaking. The show was being re-rehearsed and further changes were still being made, almost right up until the final performance at the National Theatre on the 1st of April 2000.
Looking at these records reminds us that a production can have many different versions. A recording will only show you one performance and one version. All the reviews talk about Anastasia Hiller's performance as Clytemnestra. But when we track down the details of the production recording held by the archive, we see it was made later in the run, once Anastasia had left the production and Helen Schlesinger had taken on the role. By looking at this range of archive materials, we can trace just some of the variations that occur.
There are changes that can happen to a play at the instigation of the creative team. Other changes may be less deliberate, but no less impactful. The actress playing Clytemnestra, Anastasia Hiller, was actually pregnant during this production and went on maternity leave in February of 2000, in the middle of the run at the National Theatre. This meant that Helen Schlesinger, who had been part of the ensemble in the chorus, took on the part halfway through the run.
None of the creative team could have planned it, but what a difference it must have made to the experience of this play for Clytemnestra to be visibly pregnant, as she must have been for the January performances. What must we imagine Agamemnon is thinking, returning from 10 years of war to find his wife pregnant? Or, even more horrifying, to witness Orestes murder his own pregnant mother in the second play.
Anastasia's account injects some much-needed humour here. We read, grabbing digestive biscuits off the props table backstage at the Cottesloe for sustenance and to stave off chundering, as 7 months pregnant while playing Clytemnestra, with my husband, the father of the baby, playing Oresteia and later stabbing me horribly to death before dragging me off stage. This was quite a challenge for him, given my proportions by then.
In theatre, there can be no camera tricks to hide the body of an actor. In this case, Anastasia Hiller's pregnancy added a chillingly appropriate layer of tension to this tense family drama. The character of Clytemnestra doesn't always get the greatest press. She is a murderer, one of the famous blood-spattered heroines that Greek tragedy does so well. This production of the Oresteia worked hard to show how complicated and even sympathetic the figure of Clytemnestra could be. One of the reasons Clytemnestra gives to justify her murder of Agamemnon is that it was to avenge her daughter Iphigenia. At the start of the Trojan War, Agamemnon had obeyed a prophecy and sacrificed his eldest child in order to secure a favouring wind to take the army to Troy.
Katie Mitchell, like a number of other feminist directors in the 1990s and early 2000s, made the figure of Iphigenia really prominent in her production. Even before the audience take their seats, Iphigenia is foregrounded. On the cover of the programme, we see a little girl's dress, half buried in the sand, a reference to the beach where Agamemnon's army was stuck and where the murder of his own daughter took place. In Aeschylus's text, we only hear of Iphigenia via the chorus's recollection of what was reported to them. In this production, the figure of Iphigenia is physically present on stage, haunting the action, still wearing the gag she wore for her murder, cradled by her mother, leaping on her father, an unavoidable reminder of Clytemnestra's reason for murder.
When Agamemnon arrives home and Clytemnestra seems to welcome him, she even rolls out a kind of red carpet. In an ancient Greek context, the idea of treading on really expensive fabrics would be quite shocking, and an indication of Agamemnon's arrogance in destroying something so valuable underfoot. To communicate this shocking moment for modern audiences, Katie Mitchell delivered a masterstroke.
Deploying her trademark psychological plausibility, she imagined that Clytemnestra would have kept all of her murdered daughter's clothes, and that the red carpet should be made up of all of these little girls' dresses stitched together. When Agamemnon treads on this carpet, he is not only symbolically reenacting the destruction of his own daughter's life, the treading on the cloth symbolises too the way so many innocent children suffer during war.
It also makes the first meeting of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon fraught with unspoken recrimination. The cloth is a sign that she has not forgotten the murder of their daughter. It's as if she is saying to him, "Here, face what you have done, what you have destroyed, and face the consequences of your actions." All this foregrounding of the character of Iphigenia serves a really important purpose in how we understand both this play and the subsequent action, where the cycle of revenge continues. The horror audiences feel at Agamemnon's murder of Iphigenia makes us feel more sympathy with Clytemnestra's revenge. She is not only a murderous wife plotting her husband's downfall, she is a grieving mother and a furious, righteous spirit of vengeance.
The National Theatre Archive really is a unique resource that allows you to get up close to all these incredible productions and unlock interpretations of classic texts that perhaps you'd never considered before.
Anyone can book a time to access the resources of the National Theatre's archive by contacting us via our website.